I am going to leave this because it's 11 minutes, so I want to talk. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you expected to see Flora Purim. However, she's working on a recording right now, and had to, she had to postpone. So I invited to have back my dear friend from a long time ago. Notice I didn't say my dear old friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, Deb.
And Michael Stephans, who used to live in LA and then moved to New York a long time ago. But still, we remain friends.
Absolutely.
Michael Stephans, hello, darling.
Hi, Kathy, darling.
You do have you have Uncle Don B. Fireland Fanning.
Oh, he's a wonderful poet, actually, from back in those days.
Oh,
Yeah, he is not only a poet, he is a poem at the same time. Hi, Don.
you're a
Uncle.
poem.
That's right.
Dennis Dow.
Of course. Dennis. Hi, Dennis. Drum shop Dennis and friend Dennis.
And Roland, you don't know Roland probably, Roland Ascaruns from the old days, but he's bought your book. He bought your book.
Is it Vasquez?
Yeah, no, not Roland Vasquez, Roland Ascaruns. He
No.
was a fan, and he was kind of a closet guitar player.
Oh, okay.
He did play guitar, but then he stopped. But I've seen his 12 or 11 guitars. So he's
Wow.
still really a guitar player, you know what I mean? You don't keep 11 guitars if you're not a guitar player.
That's it.
So Mike Stephens.
I was thinking about guitar players actually last night. I'm thinking about made a list of all the great guitar players. I've been so blessed to play with some of the greatest guitar players anywhere on either coast.
Well,
And
first of all, what we were just watching, I
yeah,
don't think a lot of West Coast people, probably guitar players do, but know about Vic Juris. But wow,
Vic was in a class by himself, just
yeah,
like Larry Cook to me is in a class by himself.
yeah.
You can line up 100 guitar players, and there'll all be some wonderful players in there. But
Hmm.
I would, because of my experience, I would be able to pick out Vic instantly as well as Larry instantly.
Yeah.
Uh, but I played with these other great guitar players on this coast, Steve Cardenas.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and Steve, actually, I first met him in LA. I was at, I guess it was, he had a house, he was renting someplace. So he and Larry and I forget who played bass. It might have been Patitucci, but I'm not sure. We just played all afternoon, and then I didn't see him again until New York, until moving back into the Poconos actually, and we had a band for a while called Strings, and it was all the Stephans and because I was the only not playing a stringed instrument, but it was Vic Juris and Stevenness and Jerome Harris, who's a marvelous guitar player in his own right, but he played bass guitar in this band. So I had these three guys up on stage. It looked like a rock band, an Elden rock band. But I mean, but it was those kinds of guys. You just they just resonate all the time, and they listen so hard. And there's been so many others. I mean, Ron Estate, Rick Zunigar, people on and on that are just wonderful musicians and great guitar players.
You probably,
So
I mean, we were just talking about Barry Zweig because we're having a memorial for him, which
yeah,
everybody's welcome to come to it. It's on Sunday at 11 Pacific time, here on Facebook and YouTube. And yeah, but you probably played with Barry too, right?
I played with Barry. I played in a quartet with Barry and Ron Anthony. And I guess the thing that was so amazing about that band is, of course, two excellent guitar players. And I forget who played bass. I want to say Jim Hewart, but I'm not really sure. But I will say that the best thing on the breaks was listening to the two of them kvetch. Ron Anthony and Barry, and it was great. I was like watching a ping pong match. They loved each other dearly,
That's
but
funny. Ron Anthony just died last week.
he did.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
well,
yeah, those two were, yeah, definitely a funny combination.
yeah, and Ron had he had a way with women that is I can't even describe. Used to go to Carmelo's and there'd be a lovely person, lovely female persuasion person at the bar, and she'd be sitting there, and I'd be chatting her up a little bit, just saying hi, how are you, how you doing, glad you were here, this and that and the other. And then Ron walks over. And Ron walks over and puts his arm on her, and I had no intent in that regard, but he walks over and puts his arm on a small of her back. He says, and nobody else could say it like this. He'd go, "Hey, baby, you liking the music or what?" And all of a sudden, I didn't exist. She was all into Ron Anthony at that point. And, Ronnie, you got the magic touch, man.
Well,
He's,
it's funny because when you said that, or when you said Ron had a way with the women, I like totally remembered he had this flow, and to tell you the truth, the girls, especially hanging out in the bars, that was what we were all kind of part of why we were there, is to get that flow from guys, and he definitely utilized that.
cool without even trying. And when you try too hard to be cool, it doesn't really do.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it has to be part of you.
like Ronnie could do that. Ronnie was like, what do you want to play next? It's like it was totally Ron Anthony. And another guy like that out here was the late and great Bob Dorough.
Yeah,
And Bob was one of these guys, Birkenstocks and socks, and that whole thing. And a
yeah.
punk at age 92. I mean, so, and I have a poem here that I'll read a little bit later. It's called "Devil May Care," which I actually gave to Bob, and it was put in his. We used to do it occasionally whenever he was singing, and I would be playing drums or something. Even if I wasn't playing drums, it was a situation where I would read the poem, and he loved that poem. So it was great to have a payee into somebody who was still with us. And that was Bob. So those people like that are rare, I think. I mean, these guys grew
Yeah.
up being cool. They didn't go to cool school. They just were teaching.
Yeah. Oh, see, Roland wants to know what I meant by flow. Uh-huh. Well, here's the thing. It's kind of sensuous, but it's not exactly a physical thing. There's when you're, Roland, when you're, let's say when you were intimate with your wife, right? And there was that there's a flow there. So some guys just use that flow on some girl at the bar, right?
They float. They float above people. They just do. I tried to describe in one of my writing classes the difference between hot and cool and how that keeps changing every decade. It's like somebody said to me one time down in Hollywood and Vine, and it was August or something. I forget who I was with, and he said, "Wow, man, look at that guy. That guy's really hot, isn't he?" And I said, "Damn, he's wearing leather pants. I'm sure he's hot. It's 110 out there." He said, "No, I don't mean that kind of hot." I said, "Well, I mean cool." I said, "Well, what do you mean? Cool now. Cool is back, and like that. And cool kind of has been around a little bit longer now than hot. Although now sometimes guys call girls hotties, ES or
Yeah,
HODD.
the hotties. Yeah, that came out
Ugh,
definitely.
you know, I can't keep up on all that stuff. I gave up. You know.
No, I have a message from Chris Seimer. This is funny. He said, Dr. Steph, the poor man's flora purum. A farmer went into the city, ...
Oh yeah, let me tell you about Chris Seimer. This is interesting because another great player who I did not mention, who I should have mentioned because he's fantastic, is Henry Robinette.
Oh, yes.
And Henry is in Sacramento. About 20 years ago, I got a call to come up to Sacramento and record him, and with a great piano player, Joe Gilman, who lives up there, who's an unknown quantity, but his very first record, Joe's first album, I think it was his first one, was with Tane, Watts on drums and Hurst, and I think I don't remember who else is. Oh, Joe Henderson. So I mean, and Joe was right up there. Joe Gilman. Wow, So we recorded 2 days worth in about it was 1999 or 2000. We're doing that, and we did 24 tracks in 2 days, all stages. And Henry shelved it because he just kind of didn't know whether or not it fit into what he was thinking about at the time. I think he to me that he didn't feel like he was up to our level, which is nonsense because he was definitely up to our level. And about a year ago, he called me and he said, "Listen, I would like to bring you and Chris and Gilman back together to record again 20 years later." I said, "So what's your plan?" And he said, 4 CDs. First CD is going to be called Then, THEN. And it's going to be first half of that session that we did in 2000. Second one, which just came out, is called Then Again. And it's the next series of tunes. I guess 12 tunes or something. I forget how many. But he sent me some of the rushes, and Chris got to hear them too. And we're listening to them and saying, yeah, this really does sound good. And Henry said, I didn't think I sounded very good then. He says, I like this, And of course, so he said, I want you out. So he flew Kathleen and me out to Sacramento, and we did another 2 days worth of recording, same rhythm section, and same, of course, Henry. And now the new ones are going to be coming out. The Then Again just came out, but but the new ones are coming out in the spring, as I understand it from Henry.
Then again, I like that. Then again,
same band, and now and when Chris and I actually got together this last one November before this one, and we recorded up there again with Henry in his home studio because he's a recording engineer. I thought, man, I'm going to be playing with Chris Seimer, and we used to just play really, really well together. We played a lot in different situations, and Theo Saunders, we were in that trio for a long time, and it was a wonderful trio to play in, and it was always an adventure.
yeah.
And but Chris, and I'm looking at Chris, and I'm thinking, God, I hope I'm up to this. I thought, I'm not going to, I said, I'm not playing the same way I played. It was very intense back in the day. I'm not playing that way much anymore, like in that style, something more intuitive. And the minute we played, first, right out of the gate, it was right there. It's the magic of jazz. It was right.
Yeah, relationships are just, yep.
Yeah, and we just looked at each other and laughed and said, "Uh-oh, here we go again," And that's what it is. And the other thing, when Chris talks about a farmer went into the city, there's a story behind that, which is so surreal, bizarre, and so short. And that's this. I was on the way home, was living in DC at graduate school and stuff. So on the way home from a gig, and was feeling relatively no pain. Wasn't, nothing, no terrible imbibements, as it were. But I'm listening to Led Zeppelin on WHFS, and they play a lot of alternative music as well. And right in the middle of Stairway to Heaven, or one of those tunes, that stops completely, and you hear an old Jewish man say this: "You are listening to a dial-a-joke." Right? Silence. I'm going, what's this? Gee, what is this? And then all of a sudden you hear this story. He says, a farmer went into the city, walked up to a chicken. He said to the chicken, how are you? And the chicken, if Chris were here, he'd fill this in, didn't say nothing. You have been listening to Dial a Joke. I was absolutely, I couldn't drive it. I called the station the next day and he said, we don't know what you're talking about. And then I found out afterwards, it was a San Francisco comedy troupe. I forget their name now. So actually, Chris inherited that from me, and we taught his son, Gabe, how to say that when he was little.
Oh,
And
oh,
he'd get on the phone, Chris and I were talking, he'd say, hey, farmer in the city, can you do? Yeah, yes, okay, here it is. It made no sense at all. It's something that came forward and had no business being out of the ether at all, but it wound up being in reality and coming back down to earth. So that's my Chris Armour story. Sorry, Chris.
he said yes, tell it. So
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. That sums that up.
pretty good, man. And Bill Goodwin says hi too, by the way.
Oh, Bill and I have a great picture together
Oh,
at a
really?
physical therapy place. that his significant other has, and she's a wonderful physical therapist named Laurie Salmon here in the Poconos. And Bill was on the bicycle. Okay, they had two bikes side by side, stationary bikes. He's on the bike. He's on one bike. He's, it's 8 feet tall. He's on the bike. I'm on the other bike. It was like Mutt and Jeff. So Laurie took some pictures of us on the bikes. And having a race on a stationary bike is absolutely ridiculous, of course. But and he's obviously winning, but it wasn't a video. It should have been a video, right, Bill? Yeah, Bill, it was moving here was one of the nicest things about the jazz community is to have a relationship with Bill, because Bill Goodwin knows everybody, has played with everybody, literally, and actually is a sweetheart. I mean, he's just,
he is a sweetheart.
You go, Tom Waits. Oh man, he said I was on his first record, which he was.
Huh.
And he and I forget, it was Plas Johnson, I think, played saxophone. And I don't remember who played bass, because I have the record, I just don't remember. But he said, yeah, he said on the breaks, when we were recording, we used to drive around Hollywood in Tom Waits's 55 Cadillac, which of course is as long as a yacht. It's huge. And I said, Bill, do you know everybody? He said, no, not really. I said, well, I was thinking the other day about playing with Leroy Vinegar. He went, Leroy Vinegar, I know, and then it went off on because Bill spent some time out here, In fact, one of the first times I ever heard Bill play was back in California, not live, but I was at Lou Tobaccon's house playing with Lou, and I think it was Fred Atwood on bass. And Lou had just gotten the rushes of an album that he did with Bill and Bob Doherty, wonderful bass player, and also a great repairman and bass aficionado. And I listened, I thought, wow, this is really a great record. I could never find it after that, but I was, wow, just saxophone, bass, and drums, wow, that's cool.
That was cool. I have a quick Bob Doherty story. When I was working as a waitress at Dante's, Bob Doherty was around a lot, and he was fixing basses a lot at that time. And he told me that he had taken John Hurd's bass because John was like really unhappy with the sound and thought something was wrong. So he took the strings off and, just looked at the bass, and he couldn't find anything wrong with the bass. And so he looked at the strings, and they looked a little old. So he put on some new strings, and the bass sounded great. And it turned out that John hadn't changed the strings in like 8 years because, they were expensive, right?
With John Hurst, it was at Times. Do you remember the Times? That was a club.
Well, you know what? That was right before me when I came. So I didn't I knew about it. But
pretty much got into LA, and Dick Burke got me on this gig, and John was playing bass. And after his bass solo, he turned around and looked at me while he was playing. He said, "Oh, what did you learn from that?" I said, "Nothing." And friends instantly after that, But there's so many stories.
There's so many stories. Great stuff.
Yeah, jazz musicians don't have a tendency to write things down. I've been after Bill Goodwin. I said, you have got to write a book. I mean, somebody who did that recently was Gary from Stein and Vine.
Yeah. I keep meaning to get that book. Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's a trip down memory lane as far as you want to go.
Yeah.
There's a whole Lou Levy chapter that's ridiculous. It's very funny.
At some point, the bartender Bob from Dante, do you remember him? He actually put together a video that he was selling. Unfortunately, I was not in it, but I was one of the stellar waitresses there. But anyway, but it was cool to see, because you only see that in your memories,
Well, they paved Paradise and put up a parking lot is what they did with Dante's.
Yes, they did.
Whatever that
I remember a few moments like, for instance, Nick Ceroli, who was not only a great drummer, but seriously one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. He just didn't think about being funny. It just came out of his mouth funny. And he, remember Carrie the owner, used to put a really obnoxious light on at the end of the night when he wanted to close it down, finally, because the musicians would hang out forever. And so he had this, the bright, the bright light. And Nick Ceroli kind of haphazardly threw an ashtray towards it, and it broke it.
Oh.
So the next thing I know, I was in the kitchen, this is a very small area, but I was in the kitchen stuffing my face. And all of a sudden I heard some noise, and Nick Ceroli came sliding on the floor through the door. Because Carrie had oh man.
Well, see, that's the kind of stuff you can't buy that. I mean, really.
No.
Nick used to tell me a lot about his because he knew I was a writer, and that he was writing screenplays, and he was
Nick
working
was?
on one present. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Something I did not know about it, and Bob Florence corroborated that later. We
Huh.
were talking about Nick, and I went to Nick's funeral, and that the people were racing around going, "We want to bury him with some sticks. We don't have any sticks." So I had sticks in the car and a stick bag. So I got the honor of actually burying my stick with Nick Ceroli. I thought Nick would love this. He would absolutely love it. I mean, those were interesting days.
That's funny, man. We buried Gene Stone with a little drum.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was a few years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because these days when I talk to people, I know that I didn't know that V.R. Smith had passed.
Yeah.
And I talk to Putter pretty often, and he just sent me a copy of the recent CD. It's beautiful. She just had a way. She
Yeah,
had a
it's
way,
great.
a vocal.
Did you
It's sort of like,
notice? Did you notice what the last song on that was?
yeah, goodbye,
Yeah.
Gordon
And they
Bacon.
had done that, released it actually. I mean, they had finished it early, but he didn't actually realize that was that was the last song.
Yeah,
Goodbye. Wow.
yeah. It's a hard. They were married 55 years.
Yeah.
And V was another one that was soulful. She
Totally.
was. I mean, she sang like that. She told a story when she sang. It's like Lady Day.
Yeah.
I mean, I told Putter that, and he was stunned by it. I said, don't be stunned by it, man. It's just that's the way she sang.
Yeah.
You know, and her phrasing was really, really good and stuff as a singer. I just, I'm an amateur, but she's really. I always call Lisa Rich on the phone and scat for her once in a while. And she hangs up on me occasionally. But no, she doesn't really. But we talk a lot about the Lees and stuff, and I've learned a lot from her by just listening to her talk because she's studying with Jay Clayton. And of course, that's the other thing for me. The singers that I worked with in LA were top shelf. I mean, you and Chris Seimer and I it's the only time I've ever done a trio gig with bass drums and Cathy Segal-Garcia with no keyboard.
Where
And we
was
did,
that? Boy, that sounds
it was
good.
at that little club, I forget what it was. You were doing the jam sessions there.
Sportsman's Lodge.
Yeah, yeah. It was a lower floor and all that stuff. And outdoor gig. It was
Yeah.
outside in the patio, and it was three sets at least of you, me, and Chris, and it was like a breeze. I thought, this is never going to happen again, and it didn't. It didn't. I haven't done that. But then that's one singer, of course. Julie Kelly is, of course, another. Julie exudes music like that, and we both share a love of Brazilian music as well. So we would trade names of people to listen to. I think she may have even been the one to turn me on to Rosa Passos. I don't really know, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But so and then Sue Rainey, of course, and then there were a few others here and there.
Yeah.
But it's you get spoiled. You get spoiled. You get to gigs where there are people that don't really want to be there, and you're one player in a quartet away from having fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like my friend Craig Ing, a great guitar player who actually passed away about almost a year ago. Was a great spirit and was one of these people that had an aura about him. And we go to gigs and we have such a blast together. And he was a songwriter, singer, and he loved Howard Roberts' guitar playing, and he was a very good guitar player as well. And we always have one person on the gig who didn't want to be there, who just drag it right down. And Craig and I used to say, we're not going to let this guy drag us down. And we just ran right over him, one of those kinds of things when I was still doing casuals, you know, one of those
Yeah.
kinds of gigs. But but it's interesting. All those years out there, I learned a lot about
Yeah.
a lot of, including myself. You
You've
know,
been writing
because
poetry a long time. Did you ever know Michael C. Ford out
oh
here?
yeah,
Yeah, I lost touch with him in the last year or so, which is weird because we always kind of stay in touch a little bit, but I can't find him anymore.
we
But
did the poetry. We did the poetry circuit at the Iguana Cafe
okay.
and other places that are here and there. There used to be a place in Pasadena out in an alleyway that they close off and they'd serve espresso and stuff like that. And the poets would come up on poetry night and read. And I met a lot of wonderful poets. Michael C. Ford was there once in a while. Charles Webb showed up once in a while. Great, great poet who was at Pasadena. I think it was Pasadena.
Could you recite a piece of poetry for us?
Sure. Let me do a couple of different things. I love Jimmy Scott. Jimmy Scott was a person who, as Jim Liska said in one of his reviews of Jimmy at Catalina's, he said everybody was crying by the end of the first set because the vocals were so heartfelt. And everything that you heard from Jimmy Scott came right from his heart. And Jimmy was a little guy. He was only about maybe 5'1", maybe. And he had a disablement of sorts that stopped him from growing, and both in features and everything else. So they used to call him Little Jimmy Scott. And when I first got the first album that I got of his, he sings All the Way on it. And I had chills running down my spine. So eventually I wrote a short piece called A Single Voice. This is for Jimmy Scott. They say that love comes at the wrong time, wrong place. But I say that when we do what we do with one song, one space, the chill of winter gives way to a bursting spring, and one note swoops slow like a sweet bespeckled bird hanging happy over souls who know the truest blue, sung by a single voice, soaring into night skies, sudden with stars and of jasmine, the promise of a flower in late snow.
Beautiful.
You too can own a copy, you know,
I think I
anyway.
have that book.
You may well, and there's a Brookmeyer poem in here too. I'm going to read this really quickly if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's called Brooklyn Bob Plays a Bad. When Brookmeyer lived in Brooklyn for a while, when he came back from the West Coast, he people used to call him Brooklyn Bob back in the day. And so this is called Brooklyn Plays a Ballad, and the ballad happens to be Skylark. Okay,
Okay.
so here it is. 2:10 in the a.m. when he steps up to the stand, turns to waves one of them long arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you hear him play Skylark. Do 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 do, like that, just that much. The barkeep stops polishing, and old Buzz freezes in mid-sweep. Even the big blonde looks up, Manhattan moist and undone by trombone lycanthropy. Brooklyn Bog digs deep, gruff, and tender. Kansas City still life, 1954. Blue dawn under a street lamp, some hooch and the definite lonelies. Won't you tell me where my love can be? And that burry sound, that furry call to something or someplace or someone sits in the stars, square on the shoulders of Prez, Bird, Bean, Mr. Vic Dickinson, and all the rest of the best. Brooklyn, all 6'2" of him, plays to the floor, then in a sweeping arc to the ceiling, an out-of-whack Gabriel filling each void the same, only different. And no one doubts the presence of love in a meadow in the mist, someone waiting to be kissed.
Wow.
You know, that's Brookmeyer. I mean, I love to write poetry. I always have. I've gone away from it quite a bit since teaching writing at the university. I got all hung up with all that stuff, grading papers till 2 o'clock in the morning. I was with a good staff and good colleagues and stuff, but I finally wore, so I retired. Do this, Bob Dorough. Want to hear this one?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, this is Dorough, and I'm going to do it in sort of a Bob Dorough voice, actually. It's called Devil May Care, which is a tune that actually he recorded with Miles, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that he recorded it with Miles.
Yeah, he recorded 2 tunes with Miles, Blue Christmas and Devil May Care. And Goodwin, if I've said that incorrectly, please correct me via the airwaves or whatever. visual waves. So this is Devil May Care.
Okay.
And Bill's heard this one before. So you go get a martini or something, Bill. I'll be right back. Come right back. Cherry Hill amber moonshine floating over sassafras meadows in the mist. No one waiting to be kissed. And Texas looking better by the minute. With a twang like the low string, I'm sorry, with a twang like the low string on a national steel, and a Cheshire cat smile that would light up a bad scene. Mr. Gruff and Ready Teddy slipping and sliding, peeping, and brought the hill country downtown and round town. The word was out. Nothing like you has ever been seen before, they said, and after miles and miles came miles, then smiles. Doro grinned like bathtub gin, bound to last, sure to win, 'cause feeling good just ain't no sin. Rosin up the bow of the violin, stomp off that tune, put your whole self in, lift the glass and sanctify the bounce in your step, and devil may care 'cause you ain't done yet. Yeah. May care because you ain't done yet. That's Bob Doro.
That is so cool. That is so Bob Doro. Wow.
Oh, totally. It's funny because when Julie played at the Deerhead Inn, Julie Kelly, Bob was there, and we did a couple of different Bob tunes, and there's a picture that we have that Julie's husband Sam took of Bob and the rhythm section, and it's Cameron Brown on bass, and Mark Soskin on piano, and myself. And I took a picture of Bob with Julie and the group.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's a real treasure, man. You know, Bob was something special. I'm at the Deerhead when I first came to town. He was taking the money at the door.
Bob.
Yeah, Bob. I said, "You look familiar." He said, "Hi, Bob Doro." I went, "Oh shit." You know, and he was real friendly. And that's where I first met Bill. And the next time I saw him was at the vegetable section of Wegmans grocery store, where his wife was off shopping. Kathleen was off shopping someplace else. And we talked about asparagus. He said, "Well, you know, when you're picking out asparagus, you got to look." You know, I'm talking about asparagus with Bob Doro. What kind of place is he? That was my introduction back into the East Coast, because I'm an East Coast guy anyway. So, last thing I'm going to is this. This is a little cajon. It's called a cajonito.
Yeah.
And actually, I like it because I can play with my fingers. And anyway, this is a tune that I wrote. Charles Mingus did an album called Mingus and there's a tune on that album called Eat That Chicken, you know, which is very funny. Basically, it's a kind of a razzmatazz Dixieland version of some kind of tune that Mingus made up. Mingus sings the lyric, you know, "Oh Lord, I want to eat that chicken," you know, one of those things. And so I wrote Mingus and I was working at the time with Benny Maupin, and Benny. We had a trio originally with Chris Seimer, and then the trio had various other bass players here and there, and then all of a sudden we added Dark Olis and then Munyango Jackson, and that trio existed for 15 years. And we used to tour. We did South America. We did a documentary in South America that was beautiful, which a lot of people have not seen, which I hope they get to see. But what we did oftentimes was Benny has this vamp that he'd use on bass clarinet. It would go and he'd play that vamp continuously. And while he's playing, this hip hop thing that I wrote. It's the only hip hop thing I ever wrote. So apologies up front, okay? But it's called Mingus all right? So I'm going to use this to accompany but also I would tell you that Dave Liebman and I did a duo album. We recorded it on the duo album with the vocal, and Lieb playing tenor and me playing drums simultaneously, and it came out really good. So the duo album's called Nomads, and it's got a lot of funny stuff on it, really good stuff too, actually.
Yeah.
This is
Wait. Oh, sorry. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear you. It kind of left. I think you might have to start with the vocal and then add
okay, let me do that. Bird, puppet, woman, rag-headed razzmatatuti. How's that? Mopping and bopping, not stopping, teaking that chicken, talking and ticking. Time rises, shaking loose from gut wire wound round doghouse on the way to the moon. bang, zoom, on the way to the moon, bang, zoom, moon, bang, zoom, riffing at mittens, slamming at slugs, slug in the Bone Man, Hellview from Bellevue, Blue Fire Bandstand. Then orange dream weaver, you better believe I'm a true believer. Orange silk dream weaver, you better believe I'm a true believer. You better believe, you better believe. Oh, I can't do that fast. You better believe, you better believe, you better believe. Oh, better believe. Bopping that rebop all over the place. Man Mountain Mingus, face of the bass. Bopping that rebop all over the face. Time, Man Mountain Mingus, face of the bass. Popping that rebop all over the place. Man Mountain Mingus, face of the bass, face of the bass of the bass, face of the bass, face of the bass, face of the bass, face of the bass.
Yay!
I screwed that up pretty good. I've been rehearsing that too.
Face of the bass, face of the bass. I like that, face of the bass, face of the bass.
Well, that's a tune that was on the Coleman album, Face of the Bass.
Oh.
Actually.
Hey,
Yes,
Roland wants to know, do you have books published of your poetry? Yes.
yeah, I do. I have one that's out of print, two that are out of print actually.
Ah.
And this one is purchasable from the author.
Ah.
From his garage. He has 150 of them. That's not true.
Okay, so Roland, you know how to, you just get in touch with Mike through Facebook.
Yeah, and it's that's my parents in 1942 on the cover, 42 or 41.
Oh.
And The Color of Stones is the name of the book, and it's got a lot of interesting stuff in it. I think they're pretty good. Some of them are pretty bad, but I think they're some of them live pretty well. Like Armani in Hell is a good one for anybody who is conscious of wearing labels and stuff. I should talk, but in the meantime, I love to write. It's an extension of playing. But the good thing about this is, make a mistake when you're writing, you can always fix it. When you make a mistake on the bandstand, you can't fix it ever. It's like Eric Dolphy said, when you hear music, after it's over, it's gone in the air, you can't recapture it.
Yeah.
Something like that. So
Bill said that, let's see, Bob DeRoe sang Nothing Like You on the same session that Miles did Devil May Care instrumental.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So, but I don't know whether Miles recorded all three of them. I don't remember whether Blue Christmas was recorded, but I do remember. Thanks, Bill. I remember that it was Devil May Care and Nothing Like You. So.
And Joyce Glasgow says she loves your poetry and you should read more on live streams, like more often.
I used to do that. I used to do a lot of reading. Uncle Don, if he's still with us online, we used to do a lot of the circuit back and forth, and that's how I learned how to read. And actually, when you read poetry, like reading the Jimmy Scott piece, or reading something that's like an adagio kind of piece that's relatively slow, like there's one that is a Paul Desmond piece, which I could read this really quickly. If it's in this book, I think it is. It's about Paul. Oh no, maybe it's in this other one. I don't know where the hell it is now.
And Bill said, yeah, Blue Christmas was on it too.
It is. Okay. All right. So that takes care of that. Let me see the table of contents on this thing, because I love Paul Desmond, and I always have, and particularly love Paul Desmond when he played as Paul Desmond and not as part of the Brubeck Quartet.
Yeah.
But that was nice too. But I really like this one a lot better. This is he did an album with strings, with Jim Hall playing guitar, and it's been reissued a number of times. And it's there's a tune on there, if you're familiar with the album. Keith Jarrett recorded it later with his trio. It's called Late Lament, and it's absolutely a beautiful tune. Late Lament, Desmond and strings. Desmond wrote it, and a lot of people have played it off and on. I think I played it with Alan Broadbent once, actually, too, as I recall. I'm not sure. But it's an absolutely gorgeous tune, great changes. I don't think there's any lyrics to it yet, but someone will probably do that. But this is called On First Hearing Paul Desmond and Strings. And this is from The Color of Stones. I take a deep breath on this one. It's somewhere outside Louisville, near where the land rolls and glides into a bluing that comes before dawn. You light your last lucky and pull long and deep to your losses. The song on the radio, a much too late lament. Desmond floats over melody upon a cushion of strings, strung weightless like the cool breathings of her last words. And as the song gives itself over to silence, your aloneness seems so final out there below a changing sky on the road to anywhere. You know,
Oh.
not the happiest poem in the world. You know, these are happy poems. So there's that. Anyway, I'm happy that you like it. I'm happy you like the poetry. I'm writing more now, and I'm actually working on a third book. Not a poetry, but the first two books were, as you know, uh, uh, Experiencing Jazz, a Listener's Companion, and Experiencing Ornette Coleman, a Listener's Companion. I think you have
Yeah, I have the Ornette Coleman.
the Ornette book, yeah.
Yeah.
This next book I'm working on, the working title at this point in time is Moments, Shapes, and Visions. And what it is it starts as a memoir, and it becomes something altogether different because it includes poetry based on whatever I'm writing about in prose, and it also includes things from that are the remembrances, but also other things that are fictional, So it's a compendium of my writing basically, and it's sectioned into areas. So I'm working on that. I hope to have it done by summer, if
Right.
possible.
Sounds good.
I was going to call the book "Watching Evening Come," and I didn't want to call it that. I felt too kind of, I don't know, foo-foo. I couldn't figure out what it felt like. But this is a very short prose piece. It starts out. It's called a hybrid piece. For me, it's hybrid because it moves into surreality. It moves into something that's unreal, yet it's very metaphoric when you listen to it. So I don't need to explain my work because that's sort of being a prostitute in terms of prostituting your work. It's called Watching Evening Comes. This is prose. Okay. A late afternoon in November 1954, one of those rare Florida days when it actually felt like autumn, a crispness in the air mixed with a hint of sugar pine and Kentucky bluegrass, tendrils of smoke fueled by Marvin George's wood burner. In the backside of the house, his son Ronnie gunned me down. After a showy bit of teetering and tottering, I crumpled onto the grass, face up, gazing at the dusky sky as if for the last time. I was battling Bob Steele, the scrappy little cowboy star from those old Republic westerns Ronnie and I used to watch every Saturday morning. Battling Bob, Wild Bill Elliott, Tex Ritter, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and a kid named John Wayne. We alternated between being the good guy and the villain. In the midst of my supposed dramatic demise on the backyard prairie that dusky afternoon, Ronnie's mom called him in, and I mistakenly assumed that he'd be coming back out, especially since we made a pact that if the hero was badly wounded, even if he was badly wounded, he would not die. So I fully expected my buddy to come back out in order for me to arise magically and serve up some frontier justice. However, I miscalculated. The fact was that Ronnie's mother had called him in for dinner, and he was at the dinner table. He wasn't going to be coming out anytime soon to finish our little sagebrush saga by facing the music and getting his just desserts at the wrong end of a pearl-handled cap gun. So there I lay, undone and unmoving, watching the fading pastels give way to what would be a cobalt sky, watching the seasons change, feeling the years pass, seeing first loves come and go, sensing the mysteries of my physical self, the joys and heartbreaks along the way on an as yet untrodden path, and finally, in some strange way, and for the briefest of moments, sensing the aching epiphany of my own mortality. I lay there, a long dead Bob Steele, a shadow dancer, doing a final pas de deux with the inevitable, out there, face up, in a field of dormant bluegrass at twilight, watching evening come through ancient eyes. So that's the prose piece. Joey Barron and I used to talk about drumming, and Joey was always one of my heroes, a wonderful drummer. But I always called Joey the painter because Joey could paint pictures with his drums. He could paint pictures like Shelly Manne could do. I heard Shelly one night play a ballad using sticks on a cymbal and playing a solo. I never heard anybody do that. But then Joey was one of these people who could eke sounds out of his drums that were incredible sounds and beautiful sounds. And I thought, this is an extension of Paul Motion, who could also do that, but did it in a different way. And I found Joey's way of doing that very, very attractive and within my grasp. The cymbal has so many pitches to it. You can hit it on the side, just if the cymbal's flat, you can hit it like this perpendicularly, and get a completely different sound than you'd ordinarily get. With brushes, of course, you can scrape to make a ding sound, and having lots of cymbals gives you lots of vocabulary. So I always play with like 5 or 6 cymbals if I can, if there's room, But Joey was a painter. And I wanted to do that with words. I felt, and my idols did that. All my idols that were people that were wonderful poets. Tess Gallagher, who is a friend actually, who was married to Raymond Carver, who was one of the great literary geniuses of the 20th century, the short story mold, and like that. But these people could paint with pictures. Tess wrote this beautiful piece called, I think it was called A Band of Gold or something. I don't remember what it was, but she wrote it for somebody's wedding, 2 bands. And I was playing a gig at the Sea Cove out in Santa Barbara, and Tess came with me to the gig. And on the way home, she said, "Do you want to hear a poem?" I drove her home all the way back into LA and from Santa Barbara. And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to hear one." So we took a flashlight, and I was driving, and she read this poem to me, and I was floored by it. I thought, is this everything I will never be able to do, ever? And she got to the end of the poem, and I had tears in my eyes. I had to pull over so I could get a handkerchief and stop and wipe my eyes dry, because it was so moving. And there's a lot of poets out there that are wonderful, that resonate, totally resonate. If any poets are listening, like Uncle Don Firebrand Fanning, Uncle Don knows exactly what I'm talking about. The poems that resonate are like when you listen to Coltrane and he's playing Alabama, which is about the 4 little girls that were killed and burned in that church. You listen to it, it takes you to some other place. And music will do that. Music will carry you, lift you up, and put you on a carpet, as you know. And I want to do that. So that's
Yeah, well, I have a friend who's a really great poet. She's in the community, and she'll perform her poetry, and she just has this amazing, just what you described, takes you there. Her name is Judy Barrett, and she travels a lot too, like all around the world. And a lot of times she'll talk about her attraction to a man, like, a man doing the tango and taking her in to do the tango. It's really, yeah. I haven't heard a poem from her that I don't like, and that I don't feel pulled in and drawn in to the story.
Yeah. That's the magic of it.
Beautiful. Yeah.
What we can do with words is something other than hateful. We can do words. Words can make you can be in an armchair and all of a sudden you're in Nicaragua. You can be sitting there reading what somebody has written. I used to like to read travel writing. Like Aldous Huxley was a very good travel writer. A lot of people didn't know that.
Oh.
But when you read these people writing about places that they've been, like last year I started reading Hermann Hesse again. And I was reading his travel journals. There's one book of travel stories. They're not stories, of travel logs from Singapore that he wrote on a boat back and forth from Singapore and various places that are very exotic. It's a wonderful book.
I have to tell you, the book he wrote, Siddhartha, that book actually changed my whole life. I was in 5th grade, and I had a great English teacher who was unusual. She was probably more of a poet, that kind of spirit. So that was a book that I had to read, and I didn't realize that other people thought like I thought. Up until that point, I had a good upbringing and stuff. I had good siblings and, the rest of that. But the way you think and speak is, especially when you're a child growing up, it's easy to feel alone in that,
Oh yeah, of course.
especially if you're a little bit,
Introverted, maybe.
no, I wasn't introverted, just more spiritual, more thinking. And I couldn't really say everything like in very precise, crisp terms. I would kind of look at stuff and then I would bring that in. And in fact, I had a bit of a stutter for a while because of that, because I was uncomfortable with people not saying they didn't understand me. And
Yeah.
then Siddhartha, it totally changed my life.
Words will do that to you, won't they?
Yeah, words and ideas, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. And it's funny because music and poetry are all about taking risks and all about what is not, you don't know what's coming in the next measure. You don't know what's coming in the next line. I mean, that's the way we write as well. And then sometimes the poem will write you, just like the music will play you. You
Yeah.
know, the band that that have Quartet Oblique.
Uh-huh.
I'm one of the segments of my new book is called Three Gifts from the Universe, and I I feel like in retrospect, and this is part of memoir, that I've had three opportunities I never thought I would ever have. When I was 14 years old, I first heard the Jerry Mulligan Concert Jazz Band. I heard Bob Brookmeyer. And I never heard anybody play an instrument like that before. Plus, it was a valve instrument, it was a valve trombone. It wasn't a slide trombone. But beyond that, I mean, he could sneeze and fart and do all kinds of things on that instrument, and yet still play beautifully lyrical music. And I started listening to him. I couldn't get enough of him. I don't know why. I'm a
Oh,
drummer. I'm listening to a valve trombone player. It's kind of warped. That's the
warped.
way it was. Eventually, had a couple of near misses, and when I moved to California with early on, one of the things that I did is I went to hear him play at a club. I forget, it was in the Valley somewhere, and he was playing with Terry Gibbs, and Brookmeyer was, and I introduced myself, and I said, "Would you like to come over for dinner sometime?" He said, "Sure." So he came over for dinner and had lasagna and stuff in this little dinky apartment we were living in at the time, and we became friends. And then I said, I would love to play sometime. We started playing. It was Fred Atwood, and I forget who played piano. Oh, Bill Mace played some, and Bob Magnuson played some, and all of that. And then Brooke slid back into his old ways, and his old ways meant alcoholism. And we had a gig at Dante's, and it was one of these situations that was life changing for him.
Yeah.
I was there. I was playing, and he came he took a cab to the gig. He didn't live that far away, but he took a cab from to the gig, and he was just rip roaring drunk. It was not, it was an awful. So he made it through about half of the first set, and then he almost fell off his stool that he was sitting on. So I put him in a cab and sent him home, and called Lou back, and Lou came out and finished the night with us. And I hadn't heard from Brookmeyer for about a week or two, and then finally we spoke, and he said, because I had been over to his house a couple of times, he lived in Lancashire somewhere, knocked on his apartment. He'd say, "Go away." I said, "Hey, it's me, Stephans." "No, go away." He's juiced or something. I thought, he's doomed. That's all there is. And then, I guess about 2, 3 weeks went by, and I got a call from him. He said, "I'm going into the hospital. I'm checking in. I can't live like this anymore." And he said, "You won't hear from me for maybe 6 months." He said, and I will be thinking about you and all that. And we're friends, and blah blah. About maybe 4 or 5 months later, he called and said, "I'm out. I'm completely fine." He said, "I want to play again, so I need you to help me do that." And of course, his other ally was Bill Holman. So when Bob started playing again, he wound up in Willis's band, playing and doing other things here and there. He had what was called Buzz Aldrin syndrome. That's what they call it.
Oh,
When you've been to the moon and back, and you've been famous and this and that and the other, you get bored with yourself. Then you kind of can fall into bad habits, and that was Bob's initially. But Bob was a brilliant mind. So anyway, he started coming over to John Hurd's house. I had John, Ron Eshtay, and Bob and myself, and we played once a week.
hmm.
And he said, "I got to get back in shape." He said, "Because Stan Getz wants me to come with him on a European tour." So we played week after week, and we finally did a gig at Dante's, No, Dante. Yeah, no, we did a gig at Carmelo's. Then we did two gigs, and one with Joe DiOrio playing guitar rather than Ron Echte. And it was just, Bob was playing better and better and better, And then he moved back west, or back east rather. And he did an album at Sandy's in Boston with Jack Wilkins, Joe LaBarbera, a good friend of ours, Bill's and mine, and any number of other people. But I went to Brooklyn to hang out with him at one point. And I thought, I'm playing with, and on the first album, he said, I want to dedicate this to Willis and Michael and the people who helped bring me back, So, and I said, don't thank me, man. I had nothing to do with it. You should thank yourself, And he started studying classical music more and doing things, writing classical pieces. He was like flowering completely. It was amazing to see. So that was our history. And he came out here and we recorded two albums, actually. We recorded, one was Oslo, which was with Eric von Essen and Alan Broad and myself. And that was in 84, I think, 84, 85. And we did a tour. We did a tour early on. Putter Smith and Theo Saunders and Bob and I did a tour, our coast-to-coast tour of Arizona. That's what Bob called it. And we played a place in Phoenix for a week, which was great because we had a week to really stretch. And then we played Yuma, Arizona. We did the Aunt Gracie show, which was a local show in Yuma, if you can believe that. And she said, okay, Bob and the boys will be back in a minute. But the first time, I want to tell you about this deal you can get it down at the car wash. You can't beat it with a stick. And I'm thinking, what the hell are we doing? We went to an elementary school. And I forget where that was, in Scottsdale, maybe. We played also in Yavapai College in Prescott. And we did Arizona, really, basically. But we did an elementary school, and we had a bunch of kids are sitting around on the floor, and we're playing. It's Bob and Putter and Ted and myself. And I says, okay, are there any questions? We played a couple of tunes. And the kid said, how come that instrument has valves and doesn't have a slider? And Bob explained it, like that. He said, well, da, 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 da. Some little kid sitting in the very front raises his hand and says, how much do you make a year? And Bob looked at him straight away, didn't bat an eye, and said, not nearly enough, kid. Anyway, the first part of this piece, Gift from the Universe, is a story about how Bob came into my life. And it's already been reproduced in Experiencing Jazz, a Listener's Companion, the first jazz book I wrote. But the second piece is Dave Liebman. And Dave is the one, when I came to, when Manyango and up and came to New York, we had a very good friend of mine, Ron Weisberg, who loves the music, who financed the trip for us. Because I was saying to Ronnie when I said, man, I would love to be able to, this is still living in California, but I was in New York visiting. I'd love to be able to do a record out here with maybe some Jewish liturgical music with like Liebman, who I've never played with, and Benny Maupin, two different generations of people that played with Miles, and Manyango Jackson, who was in the last generation to play with Miles on percussion, and those elements, those three, and then have a really good New York bass player, but he's from California, really, Scott Colley. So we went into the studio. Actually, Ronnie took care of the whole thing. And my other friend, Richie Ocon, was there. Richie was and is one of the great New York impresarios of jazz music. He's been a manager of the Blue Note, and he's in all kinds of places. I want to say Builder's Emporium. That's totally wrong. What's the name of that? He's been everywhere, and he knows everybody. Richie just knows everyone, and he's very well respected. And we knew each other back in the college days. But Richie was at the sessions as well, and we did it at Soho at the studio. It's called. Had a great engineer, and Jack Igor also was a great engineer for us. He did the mixing and stuff. But we did 2 days worth of recording, and I had asked Lieb if he would, when I met him for the first time in real time. Benny and I went to the Jazz Bakery to hear Liebman play with Vic Juris and to play with Marco Marcinko, a wonderful drummer, and also to play with Tony Marino, an exceptional bass player, and who we're going to talk more about later. But I asked Lieb, I introduced myself. I said, here's what I like to do. I don't want to do jazz versions of Jewish music. I don't want to do like, Dianus. I didn't that kind of stuff. I didn't want to do it. Just, I didn't. Shelley Mann did it better than I would ever do it. So I went to stuff that's postmodern in nature, and so ultimately, Richie, when I had come to New York to solidify all of this, was very interested. Lieb Lieb was very interested, and what he did was he said, "Let's look at conceptualize how you want to do these." So I said, "Well, I'd like to do Dayenu in 7/4. I'd like to do by Mir Shane, soprano, bass, and drums, soprano sax. I'd like to do this one, which is just a floater. It's a poem I wrote called Moon Over Miami, which is about being the last stop hotels for a lot of Jewish folks that were widows and widowers back in the days of. So we recorded the poem with ethereal sounds. We did all that stuff. We got it all set and put together. And then I came back a couple months later in May of 2005, I think it was, or six, and we recorded 2 days. And Benny was there, and Benny and Dave hit it off immediately, because they knew each other briefly here and there. And Scott Colley can play with everybody and anybody and sound magnificent, and Manyongo is the same. He can always do that as well. So we recorded the first day. It came out very nice. We think, you never know when you're doing recording all day. But David said to me, and this is going to be in the new book, he said, "Let's go out to dinner, you and me." I said, "Okay." So we went to Gallagher's Steakhouse. You don't go to Gallagher's unless you've hocked your car, But we were able to pull it off. We went to Gallagher's, and for 2.5 hours at least, we sat there, and he had to know everything about me. And I had to know everything that I could about him, but I already knew a lot about him anyway, I had all his records, And I thought, and it's funny because Eric Von Essen and I went to see him play at this little club on Sunset. It wasn't a club, it was a room in a hotel. Maybe you remember it. And right across the street was a Holiday Inn where Lieb stayed. So we went and saw him. I didn't know him. This was in the mid 80s, I guess, early 80s. And I said to Eric, I said, "Man, I would love to play with him someday. I would love to have that kind of energy to play with him." And it was with Joel DeBartolo and Peter Donald, another wonderful musician, and also David Rothstein, another wonderful musician who is an innovator in a lot of things. And that never happened, of course, So to have this opportunity, so David is saying to me, "Tell me about your life." And it went on for 2.5 hours, talking about and trading ideas, and talking about joys and talking about sorrows and all of this kind of stuff, And I just had gone through a divorce and was feeling really blue about it in a lot of ways, and feeling like he had to know everything. I said, "What do you want to know all this stuff for? You publish it in Confidential magazine or something?" What? He said, "No." And I'll tell you tomorrow. So the next day after recording, I said, "Tell me now." And Lieb says, "Okay." He says, "Whenever I play with somebody that I know I'm going to be playing a lot with," he said, "not just beyond," he says, "you got to move here, first of all. That's the first thing you need to do. You need to move back here into the Poconos. We'll help you find a house. We'll give you a realtor's number and all that kind of stuff." And he was instrumental in bringing Cathy and me back here, so to speak. And he said, "I needed to know all that because I wanted to know who you were inside, not just the playing, because then I could play better with you, knowing what you're feeling. Because I know when you hit a certain rim shot a certain way," and Lee plays drums too, and piano. He said, "I know something about you. I know what caused that rim shot to happen the way it did," which is astounding to me,
Yeah.
that a person would be like that, and he's been a real champion for me in a lot of ways. He's a mensch, he's a guy who gives to other people. Also, he's got that combination of intensity and control. I have never heard anybody do what he does. I've never heard anyone do, and he's always consistently on. I don't know, did I send you I sent you one link from the Quartet Oblique.
Yeah, we should listen,
Yeah, that's
right?
the tune is it's called Vertigo, and it's by
Yeah.
John Abercrombie, who
See.
had passed on uh, after we recorded that, actually. Just that.
Let me wait. Let's see. Nardis. Oblique. Here we go. Uh, Okay. Oh,
Vertigo.
is it Vertigo?
Uh-huh.
That?
Yeah. It doesn't
Okay.
have to be, but that shows off the
Yeah.
third person who I'm
Yeah,
looking
that's
at.
cool. And by the way, while we're taking a breather here, Judy Silvano is here, and
Oh,
she
good.
she said thanks so much for helping Brookmeyer. I heard so much of his great writing after he got sober. Thankfully, he made it. He wrote some great charts for Mel Lewis, and also Don posted. I guess it's a get together. Telluride, Colorado has an online Zoom session tonight, co-hosted by Art Goodtimes. So for poets. So that would thank you, Don. It's funny that you posted that because I was thinking, I wonder if there are any. I'm sure there were poet po poetry online things.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots. I have been out of touch with a lot of that. So that's always welcome. And Don is a wonderful guy. Don is, when they made Don, they threw the mold away. I have to tell
Yeah.
you, they really do. He could recite a poem with more conviction than anybody I know. Plus, we had a group at one point that Don produced and directed, and it was called Don Help Me Out. It was called Third Person Singular. Two other poets and myself, and we were on stage, and we had the whole thing orchestrated with everybody reading their poems alternating back and forth, all topically related. Don put all that together, so it's nice to know he's still around and doing that. His late wife Carol Firebrand was an incredible poet as well, and
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, I mean, so he's pure poetry. I've always respected him for that, really.
You have a Sue Lane King said that she keeps Quartet Oblique in her car.
It's a great record. It's a live record at the Deer,
Yeah.
and I have to tell you,
Also, Maribel Morales said, "Great seeing you, dear Michael."
who is this?
Maribel
Mark?
Maribel Morales.
Oh yeah, Marty Bell. Okay. Hi, Marty Bell.
Okay,
Listen,
I'm gonna play Vertigo, right?
you can if you want. If you can play, you want to play something else. I have an artist on there too, but
That's
um,
fine.
let's do Vertigo because it's a change of pace.
Yeah.
Um, I want you to listen closely, everybody, to the song is of course beautiful, but listen to Mark Copeland because he's the third person that I always wanted to play with. We knew each other
Gorgeous
very, very
player.
briefly, and
Yeah.
we knew each other very briefly in DC when I was in school. I heard Mark play, and I thought, well, someday I'd like to play with that guy. Boy, what a great piano player,
Yeah.
you know. And then he moved to Berkeley. I think he was, or I don't know what the lineage was, but he ultimately moved to New York. He's been on a lot of ECM kind of records and stuff. Plus, he has his own beautiful trio record out, and it's called, I think it's called "And I Love Her." And there's also a new solo piano Mark Copeland album out. It's dedicated to John Abercrombie. It's just called John, I think, and it's gorgeous. But so Mark has a great way of playing that. He uses a sustain pedal. Those of you pianists out there will hear it. He uses a sustain pedal in a way that I have not heard a pianist do for a long time.
Yeah.
So enjoy, enjoy.
Okay.
Vertigo.
Here we are.
Those of you pianists out there will hear it. Kathy,
Yeah.
could you have the one little note because the next time was topsy turvy, and Judy's on it.
I can't hear you that well, so tell me after the song. Oh gosh, that was great. Whew.
Yeah.
Wow. What a
It never gets old. It doesn't. I can listen to that 10 times. It doesn't get old. I always hear something new to hear in it. I'm so blessed to play with these people. There's no way to describe that, the kind of pleasure, and we get off the stage, the first gig we ever played together, which was before that one. Um, I was so nervous because I had never played with Mark before. And of course, I listened to all his trio records, and he had done a bunch of them with all kinds of great people,
yeah,
and
yeah.
quintet records and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, oh God, I hope he likes this. He came off the stage and he said to me, "We really need to record this band." And when he said that, I felt something in me drop down to the bottom of my socks. I thought, oh my God, he likes it. That's fantastic. Because Mark was,
Marky likes it.
yeah, Mark, yeah, because I thought, well, please let him like this, and he
He's
did.
so good. Where I first heard him? So weird. I was traveling in Barbados or somewhere, and I went into a record store, a little record store, and I saw this record, him and Dieter or something. I can't remember.
Peter Ilg and Ralph
Yeah,
Penland.
yeah. And so
Yeah,
I just picked it out of the bin, and then I
sure.
heard it, and I was like, I totally in love with Mark Copeland. And at MI in Hollywood, I saw him and Abercrombie, and I think Derek was playing, and Joey Barron.
Yeah, yeah.
That was great. That was
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
But
Well,
Mark Copeland,
John and Mark had a great relationship. I mean, they had a long-standing relationship, and when John passed, Mark was, understandably, as many of us were, but much, much more so, was devastated. I mean, really,
yeah,
because Abercrombie is another one standalone. I never got to play with him, but I'm so thankful to be playing with Mark. And he was the third person in that three gifts from the universe, you know,
uh-huh.
because that's what it is. Anyway,
I'm going to send you a song that I recorded several times that I wrote lyrics to John Abercrombie's song Hippolytville.
oh
And
really?
yeah, the I did on one of my last records, I did a version of that with an English band, and Norma Winstone was my guest.
Oh boy.
It was fun. It was really fun, and she knew that song actually, because she had had a gig across from John for a week, and they played that song every night.
Well, she was actually brought back into my memory by Lisa Rich, who was a fan. I think Lisa said she knows Norma as well. I think she pretty does. But Lisa's another one I hope to play with at some juncture because her high wire record has friends of mine. Mark is on that record, incidentally, on high wire with Lisa and an amazingly wonderful drummer who left us way too soon named Michael Smith.
Yeah,
And Drew Gress is playing on that as well. So Drew and Mark go back a long ways. It's just like John Abercrombie and Mark go back, so
yeah.
all in the family.
Would you mind if I played a little of Hippolytville? Because somebody's kind of begging me for it.
No, I'd love to.
I'll just play a little, and
Okay,
and then I won't go on and on because this is Mike's show.
that's okay. I would like to, after that, play Topsy Turvy so
Okay.
people have a chance to hear the current, this Liebman and Joe Lovano and Judy Silvano as the third horn, which is most amazing and wonderful. And maybe we can listen to that on the way out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Hippie though. I
Absolutely.
actually don't know the tune, so I'd like to hear it. I do know he wrote it, but I never.
I bet you. I bet you recognize this. It's a really cool tune. We'll just play a little bit of it, but you'll see that Norma and I sound a lot alike, actually, and our ideas are kind of similar. Anyway, actually, most of this record was very straight ahead, so this was kind of a different one.
It already sounds like.
I hear him talking.
What he say,
The way he moves,
and what he do,
it's all in here.
it's very clear. I see him,
I hear him.
hello, what do you know?
I'm hip.
On the go,
I'm smart. I'm cool.
walk hip, talk smooth.
Know who you are.
Act smart, go far.
What's now coming down?
Look out all around. You're smart.
Play the part. Going on down to Hippie'ville. It's the place you act smart, walk smooth, talk hip, play cool. Gonna find a state of mind, nice thoughts, cool tunes, hip chicks, smart dudes, slow talk, smooth moves. Going on down to Hippie'ville. When you go, you'll look round, slow down, hang out round town. Once you find your way, you're home, home free like me. Yep, there he was.
Wow. That's great.
Did you ever hear that song?
No, I haven't.
I
But
forget.
everyone
I think it was on. Oh gosh, it was a record that was big when I like in the '70s from John, because that's I wrote the lyrics in college.
Wow, that really good. Yeah, it's interesting how your voice blends in with the horns that way.
Yeah, yeah, and Norma and I have kind of a similar range or tone or something,
Was she on that too?
Yes, she
So
was.
it was you
That
you
was both of us.
you doubled the lyric. At one point there were two. I thought you overdubbed that. That's how similar I
No,
thought.
that's how similar we sound, and but for most of it, we were like she'd do a line, I'd do a line.
Oh God! You have to send me that CD or send me the
I
cut.
will. I will. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Um, but well, you were mentioning something that Judy
Yeah,
Silvano.
we did when my first book came out, Experiencing Jazz: A Listener's Companion. We did a book signing / concert,
Yeah.
and Joe Lovano figured into the book mightily because he did a really nice interview for me, talking about how prospective listeners can learn about his music. I did it with all kinds of other players as well, but Joe's was particularly insightful. And if we had more time, I would talk to you about that. But we recorded that night at the Deerhead. I had Dave Liebman and Joe Lovano, Tony Marino, who is he's a wonderful bass player. There's three Tony Marinos, but this is the bass player version. And he's just, he's in a class by himself. He's one of those guys. It's just ridiculous. And he lives out in the boonies out here, and comes in wherever, whenever he can. But he's a very mysterious kind of lovely man, and yet a really great bass player. And then we had Judy joined us, and we decided what tunes we would do, and we did some with vocals. Like she sang Reflections, Monk tune, and I think she wrote the lyric as well. I believe. I'm not sure for sure. She could enlighten me about that. But the guys played amazingly together, and of course they were in the saxophone summit together. But this was a totally different thing, and this is live, and it's completely out. But what happens with Judy though is that Judy became the third horn.
Yeah.
So when you hear it, and then when she sings a solo, it's unlike anything I've ever heard. And yet
Yeah.
I've heard her sing all kinds of things. So, but she took it way out into the ozone and managed to do it successfully. So I think your listeners will probably enjoy this. It's called Topsy Turvy. Joe wrote it.
Is it on that list that you sent me to? It is, isn't it?
What's that?
Turvy. It's on that list that
Yeah.
you sent me. Yeah, here we go. Okay.
It's a little long, but it's worth it. It's better than listening to me yak all this time.
If it's really long, I might kind of,
You can fade it out toward the end if you want.
let's see, where am I?
I think it's 18 minutes or something.
Oh my
So we
God.
have 2 minutes to the other end. To say. There you go.
would have loved to have been in the audience on that.
Yeah, it was the whole night was like that, and it was wild. We played a lot of tunes, but we did a lot of other stuff too. So some readings and stuff like that. So that's on Dot Time Records. I didn't know that label actually until actually it was brought to my attention by Dave Liebman's daughter Lydia has got a very very good reputation in New York. She's involved in promotion and all kinds of things. And she had called that to our attention. She'd been working for Dot Time, doing some marketing stuff for them. And they're wonderful people, and they have a huge catalog, maybe 100 releases, maybe more, of all kinds of people. Kenny Barron, Ron Carter, all kinds of people. I had no idea the label existed, and it's a great label.
Yeah,
So
I've heard about that actually.
yeah,
Yeah. Let's see. I wanted to ask you a few things too, just in the last few minutes, basically. I mean, you've already talked a lot about your history, which is really quite affluent history, man. You really have played with a lot of wonderful people, had a lot of great experiences. And do you feel like at this point your music has one particular voice, but changes, of course, with different people you play? But do you feel like you really have one voice?
yeah, I do. And a lot of I think Liebman has, as with Brookmeyer, they've allowed me to be who I am and to make mistakes, and to not only just make mistakes, but also to learn from with them, because they were very adventurous players. Bob is like that, Mark Copeland, a lot of people in New York, Uri Kane, great piano player,
Yeah.
and where you're not just playing in a piano trio, for example, you're actually accompanying with certain people, and other people you're interacting. So there's been a lot of chance taking, and I enjoy that because it allows me not to play. When I close, I don't play pyrotechnic solos anymore. I'm just not interested in that personally. They're wonderful, but I'm not interested. And I'm more interested in playing the music, sort of, and that's where Joey Barron came in for me, and Paul Motion too. I mean, I learned. It's like Dizzy Gillespie said, it took me forever to learn what not to play, and that's pretty much where I am at. I like to contribute to some beauty to the instrument, not punish it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know
that's
exactly what you're talking about. It's really nice to hear. It's a different energy wave or something. Actually, yesterday I was speaking to an arranger pianist from Sicily named Cettina Donato, and she's conducts and arrange and stuff. So she has kind of a bit of a broad spectrum of what she does. But she had some quartet things on that were like that. It was really beautiful. It was sensitive. Everybody was listening and making music. Oh yeah, the other thing I was listening to this week too, I had about an hour talk with a trumpet player friend of mine in Japan. He's kind of got a Miles thing, but I've known him for I'm probably 30 years. And so I guess in August maybe he got together with some friends in a studio and did some recording, and boy, was that musical. I mean, it was just beautiful. You would like it. It was just very listening and reacting, and it was very beautiful. Very
Well,
beautiful.
what's really nice, I think, is to learn to hold back.
Yeah.
I mean, to learn on any instrument, no matter what it is. That's what's so beautiful about the Bill Evans trio back in those days, and even the last trio with Mark Johnson and Joe LaBarbera. Those guys all listened very hard, and as a result, that community, they created an instant community. I mean, the Dot Time Records thing, the quintet, was largely a community. We're up there having a conversation with each other. It's like Wynton Marsalis said it, loath that I am to quote somebody else, anybody, but this one made a lot of sense to me. He said, when I can walk into a club in Milwaukee at 2:00 in the morning, unpack my horn, they say, what do you want to play? And they'll know instantly what we're doing. And all of a sudden we're making instant music together if everybody's listening, which is a wise statement to make. So I studied with Joe Chambers, who to me was one of the absolute great drummers to come out of the 60s and 70s on Blue Note. He was on a lot of records, Wayne Shorter records, Bobby Hutcherson, all kinds of people. And I studied with him in New York. And I said to him at one point, that cymbal, what do you lead with? Because his cymbal playing was so intense. And it was real simple, it's quarter note type things. It's beautiful, beautiful cymbal play. He said, I lead with my bass drum foot. That completely threw me off. I said, wow, you don't play? He said, but my foot thinks. Something like that. And I said, yeah, okay. I mean, listening to him play, and listening to people like that who really understand the entire color dimension of the instrument of drums, not just tom-toms and stuff like that, but all the sounds, that to me made more sense than anything else. And I wanted to convey beauty and not just look how fast I can play,
Yeah.
I can play at 13.8. Can you? That's all well and good. And I like people who do it. Like I heard Antonio Sanchez one time with Scott Colley and Chris Potter. And I loved Antonio's playing because he did all the complex stuff with such ease, and yet he knew where to breathe, and that's important. Goodwin and I've talked about that, about breathing, you have to, and knowing the tunes. If you know a tune of any kind, if I Thought About You, for example, if you know that tune and you know the bridge, you can play a drum solo on that tune and sound like you're playing the tune without imitating, using drums to imitate da 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 da. Not like that. But certainly knowing the tune and respecting the structure of it, even if it's free tune, same thing. Like Joe's tune, Topsy Turvy is certainly a free tune, but there are changes to it. But knowing that you're playing that figure over and over again, da 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 da. You can get the vibe off of that and start playing that way. Sometimes we play that and we want to play a second line feel. It's just what comes out. It's your vocabulary. And if it matches what the other people are doing, in a way, you keep doing it and you gel, you congeal. And that's what music is. You know that. I heard you do it on the thing you just played for me of you. And Norma Winstone. I didn't know it was two people. That's because you were listening really hard to each other. So it's in conversations. We're having conversations,
Yeah.
So, best thing to me was coming back east because I got a chance to play way over my head, play with people that were just astounding. And I to me, it's always been a blessing that they would say, yeah, man, let's do it again, So that's where I am, And it's nice to be back and not on a computer screen on your laptop,
Right. Yeah. It suddenly struck me that I could put up the old interviews on the days that I'm not doing live, which is 4 days a week. And they're really funny, the ones in the beginning, because, I had my iPad, which was falling, and I was trying to figure out how to put the iPad up. And, and then Judy Rafat from Germany finally told me about Zoom. And then Todd Hunter told me about Restream, and I've grown a lot this year.
Oh yeah, well, I'm still struggling with some of that. I can tell you, most definitely. But it's a sign I have hanging up. I had hanging up in my office. Now it's here at home. It says there's been an alarming increase in the number of things I know nothing about, and that's really true. And that makes the world very interesting. I can't lock into one era and stay there. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't. Like Liebman and I did the duo album, and we played some stuff. We played "Get Happy" for tenor and drums. It was the because Sonny Rollins did that as a trio in the late '50s at the Village Vanguard with Elvin Jones and Wilbur Ware, and we decided we'd do it as a duo. So we went into the studio and just whatever came out at one point or other. It's just the way it was, and then we played free tunes as well. And I wish I had more copies. It was released in Germany, and it's available on Amazon, but it takes probably forever to get it. And I'm hoping that we can get a stateside release, if we can get a release from Germany to get that happening. It's on Jazz Werkstatt over there, which is nice, but it's over there. It's not here.
Yeah.
And you can get it, but Liebman is, being with him and being with people like him has been very instructive in a lot of ways. So that's why moments are important, and shapes and visions are important. That's where I'm headed. You know.
Well, on that note, um, Roland said, Michael, you're such a fantastic storyteller. I could listen to you for hours. You make Kathy's job a lot easier.
I
He
beg
also
your
loves your
pardon.
drumming. But anyway, it is actually 2 hours. And so I'm going to get off. Anything you want to say to the broad general public?
No, I would cheapen it all, but I'm not going to do that by saying, "Oh, buy this book," or "Oh, buy this CD that just came out." So, but the thing I will do is I'm working on redoing my website. Judy Frisk, who was she did my first website and did an amazing job with it, and I had it for years, and now I'm looking at using another this company just to kind of revamp what I do because there's so many more things you can add now that
By
don't
the
take.
way, did you know that that this website in the making is actually public? Because I went looking for your website and that came up first. So you might
Yeah.
want to make that not public because, like instead of the bio, it says put your information here, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know. Since I've been teaching. So I'm not teaching now, and I won't be for the near future. Um, I have more time to do that, so now I'm going to do that. I have to switch that off. And that's part of my projects in the next week or so. If it keeps snowing like this, I'll be doing this for the next 3 days. You know, so we can not only build a snowman outside, we can build a snow city. You know.
Gosh,
Anyway,
that brings
I
me
think
back to my youth.
uh,
So you can, Mike, you can look at the Facebook for comments like Dawn is, you know, saying that it's great to see you and all that. So
yeah,
please,
that, and also if anybody would like to friend me on Facebook, my Facebook page, I have a lot of stuff on there, and there are cuts, there are sound bites and stuff like that. I've been using Facebook. I have a musician band page too, so I have two
okay.
two different pages, the regular and that one. So I'm happy to converse with anybody about anything, whatever, as long as it's not political. Really,
That's so
not yet.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, by the way, Mike Dion just sent me one of his books that he wrote.
Oh, I know he had. We were talking about that last January.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to read that.
Just thought
Something.
I'd throw that out there for you.
Yeah. Well, if Mike's on. Mike, send me your book. I'll send you mine. You send me yours.
Yeah, man. So,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow I'm going to have an African pianist who is actually well known in New York as well. So he combines African and jazz. You might
Yes.
know him, Nduzo Makathini.
I know of him. I haven't heard him though.
Yeah, and he's going to be on tomorrow and next week. Flora, by the way, will be on probably in a month or so. Roberta
If you get a chance,
Gambarini, Maria Mendez, and Ron Newman are all going to be on next week.
get a chance, listen to some of Henry Robinette's music. I think you like it a lot.
I have listened
And the
because the
band.
last time we spoke, you mentioned
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You know.
Really, really great. There's so much to listen to that's so
Oh
good.
God, I don't know how you do it.
I don't know how anyone does it.
Yeah, well, it's just the important thing is to keep listening and to keep enjoying learning things, classical and jazz and country and everything. I like John Prine and Tom Waits. I'm right in there on those people.
Tom Waits.
Oh, well, I'm telling
And
you.
somebody sent me a Johnny Cash video that was one of the last things he did. Absolutely killing.
Oh, I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he could understate a song like nobody's business.
Oh my God, this was so beautiful. I'm sure it was one of the last things he did. But
Well, I'm
also
looking forward.
Sunday, I just wanted to repeat that Sunday we're holding a celebration of life for the guitarist Barry Zweig, who passed away in March, and it should be really good. You'll recognize people on there, people speaking and playing, and I don't think it'll be boring at all. And so that's at 11 o'clock on Sunday, Super Bowl day, 11 o'clock Pacific time.
Will there be a Zoom link, or is there a Zoom link that you can send me?
Well, yes, and or you can come to Facebook right here,
Oh,
my
okay.
Facebook page.
All right, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I'll definitely do that.
yeah. So thanks, Mike. It's been really a fun conversation. Every time I talk to you, I want to talk to you more, which is always a good sign.
You know,
You know?
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody for being here and showing up, and I hope you all enjoyed it.
Mwah.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste. I love you.
Back at you.